Hi, welcome to Edward Box Guitar Tuition. So my classic album inspection today is one of the all-time pop hair metal albums. 40 years old today, February 17th, 1984 it was released, and it's Out of the Cellar by Ratt. So this album went triple platinum in the States. It produced the big hit Round and Round, which is a staple of classic rock radio. Also Wanted Man, I think Back for More as well. Got Tony Katane on the front cover before she was ubiquitous in the Whitesnake videos. So yeah, Ratt started life as Mickey Ratt. Stephen Pearcy had a band called Mickey Ratt, and then it eventually developed into Ratt, adding Warren DeMartini as the final piece of the jigsaw. So Bobby Blotzer drums, Juan Crucier bass, Robin King Crosby, as he was known, on guitar, Warren DeMartini on guitar, and of course Stephen Pearcy on vocals. So Pearcy had been around a while. He actually used to say his birthday was 1959, but if you check on Wikipedia, it's 1956. So like a lot of people back then, he knocked a few years off his age. That's not uncommon, and he'd probably been around a while, not getting a break, but in that time he's probably able to work out what he needed to do. So this, like I say, is not uncommon. This is the first big production job by Beau Hill, who's a stellar job, worked really hard on this, crafting these songs. Throughout the album, he brings the guitars to the fore. He recognises those are the strength, and there's really clever guitar left and right interplay, which you can pick up throughout the album. They both do different parts. Crosby and DeMartini, different versions, or one will kind of chug riff and the other one will play power chords. But then often they'll come together and play the same part in the second pass of a verse, for instance, and that'll build the song. This is particularly prevalent on Round and Round, where the guitars are particularly well crafted. So it opens with Wanted Man. This is written Robin Crosby, Stephen Pearcy, a guy called Joey Christofanilli. He briefly replaced Juan Crucier. I think that was when Juan Crucier went to Dokken briefly, could be wrong. So one of the things is Robin Crosby realised what an influence he was on the band at the time. Warren DeMartini doesn't have much writing credits on this album, and Robin DeMartini's influence will progress as the career goes on, and Robin Crosby's will decrease, principally for the reason, I think, because of his drug, alcohol use, and just getting sidetracked, which is really sad. So people forget that Crosby, although not the player DeMartini is a really good player. He's a great rhythm player and a solid lead player. So this track's great. It's a bit of a Ratt classic. He uses the classic thing on the Van Halen style of playing the dyads, as I call them, on the D and G string, little inverted fourths as we call them, moving to the third. This is kind of a staple of hard rock rhythm playing in this era. You'll hear it with George Lynch, Red Beach and players like that. Got a nice breakdown on the verse. Solo's quite interesting. It's probably my least favourite DeMartini solo. I actually think Crosby bests him on this. I really like Robin Crosby's break on this. Really good opening track. Got that quite interesting on the drums, almost like the tape has kicked into gear. Obviously the days of reel to reel. Next track's You're in Trouble. This features Juan Crucier's bass quite heavily. It's quite almost atonal a bit, the bass line and the verse melody. Really good chorus, and then a stunning guitar solo by Warren DeMartini, probably his greatest solo for me, and one of the all-time great 80s solos. He's only 20 when he did this album, bastard. Then you got Round and Round. Doesn't really need much of an introduction, this song. Very much in the Van Halen style, with the sus4 to the major chord and the E, moving to the C. I know I always use this phrase, but usually what's called a Mixolydian flat 6. Tonality a bit on the verse, on the main chorus progression. Great use of guitars on the verse on this. Like I said before, they play separate parts and then come together, and this builds the track. I suspect, like Beau Hill, really arranged this with the players very well. Great hook on this, great solo. DeMartini's the top sort of writer on this, so that makes me think he's had a lot to do with it. Brilliant track, all-time pop metal classic. Next up is In Your Direction. This is solely written by Pearcy, and it goes back to his Mickey Ratt days. It's another great track. Features a heavily comped solo, so DeMartini did lots of passes and they comped together this mega solo, which he freely admitted he's had struggle learning because it hops around so much, but it's pretty spectacular. And side one finishes with one of the weaker tracks on the album, but a very enjoyable album. I think a very enjoyable track. She Wants Money. This is written by Juan Crucier. It's a really catchy track. It's got a really good hook. Solid solo by Crosby. You know, this is the kind of track albums need where, you know, not every track's going to be a belter, but this doesn't kind of, it doesn't drop the level too much. Side 2 opens with a lack of communication. Crucier and Piercy Ratt. This one, Crucier wrote the lyrics. This uses the drop D tuning, so taking a leaf out of Van Halen and Chained. They were one of the first bands to do this. Rim guitars sound great on this. And the timing on the verse, on the main riff, kind of trips up on itself like Kashmir, so the bass and drum and snare kind of switch the beat. It's really cool. You got Back for More. This was another Ratt staple track. This was actually a re-recording from their Ratt EP. Probably, I think it was released as a single. Lovely sort of tracking of 12 string on this. Again, doing those really cool 2-note shapes on the D and G. Moving modally. You know, from the 5th to minor 6 to the major 6. Guitarists will know what I mean on that. Kind of classic staple. A bit like 10 Years Gone by Led Zeppelin. Phenomenal, 2 phenomenal DeMartini solos, and this is a great middle one, a great outro solo. Forgot to say, he does a great outro solo on Round and Round as well. This is that era where you have to turn the volume up at the end on the fade out to get those little treats from the guitarist. Yeah, this is a great track. Crosby Piercy wrote this, again showing Crosby's qualities there. The Morning After, DeMartini, Crosby Piercy, again probably DeMartini principal riff writer on this. This is another great track, uses ESUS 4. Some really cool shapes on this. You know, very, how's it, kind of stretching out of those standard block power chords, you know. Great solo by DeMartini, uses the whammy bar on this album and the next album quite a bit. 3 minutes 30, really good hooks, sorry. There's a great riff part on this actually, hits the D, bow, 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 you know, really cool impact chords. Next track's I'm Insane. This is a Crosby track from a previous band he was in. This is probably the weakest track on the album, it's a filler track, but it's good. Got like a cool little riff, well crafted. It was actually used on the soundtrack to the Wrestler film. Good hook, cool effects before the solo and after the solo. It kind of uses the same pre-solo part and post-solo part. Cool solo by DeMartini with some cool sort of honky whammy work. And then it finishes with an absolute belt. Ratt sort of recognising, bit of Judas Priest influence here, recognising that it's always good when you have a fucking corker on it, and it's one of their all-time deep cuts, Scene of the Crime. This has just got great parts to it, great verse, great chorus. Cold-blooded bitch running out of me, you know. Backing vocals are good here, you know. Crosby, it uses Crosby's deep voice, Juan Crucier's high voice. That's one of the things with Ratt, had very good backing vocals. I think Juan Crucier may sing some lead vocals on Lack of Communication. There's a bit which goes, questions to arise. And that was something, you know, they did live well. This is great. So again, like I said, this album went triple platinum. The album afterwards, Invasion of Privacy, went double platinum. Probably because the main single, Lay It Down, only made number 40. Now, although that was good, it didn't, you know, it didn't have the success of Round and Round. After that, they didn't have a hit off Dancing on the Cover or Reach for the Sky, although MTV would have played their things. And it was the same case with Detonator. So the next two albums went platinum and Detonator went gold. Unlike Motley Crue, Ratt didn't have what Clive Davis, the famous record boss, says is a continuity of hits. Motley Crue always had hits. Even on bad albums, I know people don't rate Fear of Pain, but it has Smoking the Boys and, of course, Home Sweet Home. Girls, 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 as Girls, 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 and Wild Side. Dr. Feelgood as Dr. Feelgood, and so on. And in this era, you needed to have a hit or two to kind of keep your album cycling. So, if not, your sales would be front-loaded. And this is what happened to Ratt. I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is, I think this is their best album. Production's better on Invasion, it runs it close. But this album has great tracks on side 2. It's like side 2, you know, you got Back for More, The Morning After, Scene of the Crime. Morning After, Back for More, always played live. Wanted Man, You're in Trouble, Round and Round with total staples, you know. It doesn't dip, whereas the back end of, you know, the middle part of the side 2 Invasion's not as strong. And then this became a problem afterwards. The other problem with Ratt was drink and drugs. I mean, Motley Crue had drink and drug problems, but that kind of, you know, worked in their favour. Sadly, Robin Crosby just got sidelined more. I think Stephen Pearcy's ego was rampant. I think he became twisty about who did his vocals, and this led to problems. They didn't want to work with Beau Hill, and then Beau Hill, the record company was like, oh, you got to work with Beau Hill on the next album. And then, you know, well, you need Beau Hill. Then they tried working with Mike Stone, who actually had alcohol problems on the Reach of the Sky album. The album sounded terrible, and Beau Hill was brought in to salvage it. So, you know, there was a lot of personality clashes. I think one of the things is, which is different with this band, is you've got a lot of songwriters. And when you've got a lot of songwriters, that means people pushing for position more. I think there's that. I watched an interesting thing, Martin Popoff, Contrarians, you know, about Ratt. And he made the point that Ratt, you know, Motley Crue, it's easier to kind of have personalities with 4 band members. You know, you've got Tommy Lee, you've got Nicky Sixx, Vince Neil. There's kind of space there, and people can hook into that. Same with Van Halen and so on, or Pantera. You know, when you've got a 5-piece band, it's a little harder. And then obviously Warren Martini got a lot of attention as a guitar player. I don't think Stephen Pearcy was the vocalist or the frontman, as a vocalist or a frontman was the calibre of other people. It's interesting. He is the weak link to me. The rim section and the guitars on Ratt are really good. They're stellar. And all the band could play really well. Pearcy, he's got a rasp to his voice that's not that attractive. I was listening to the album in the car with my wife before, and she can't get into Ratt, and it's principally Stephen Pearcy, and that was her main observation. It's always good to get someone else's perspective, and she said, I just can't get with this guy's vocals. You know, someone like Vince Neil's not the best vocalist, but his voice isn't well, it's unpleasant now, but it's not unpleasant then, and Don Docken's very melodic and so on. I think this was a problem with Ratt. Plus they weren't, you know, they weren't the best looking band. I know Robin Crosby was pretty cool, but Stephen Pearcy, you know, Vince Neil, big pin-up, David Lee Roth, Kit Winner, big pin-up, sorry. So, and, you know, Ratt, you know, it's just harder for them to sustain stuff, you know. Really, when they came out, there was probably not as much competition that year. Motley Crue didn't have an album out. Dokken had Tooth and Nail, but that sort of went gold. Round and Round is a fucking amazing track. So this is why they had this initial big spurt of success, but couldn't quite continue it. But they were a headlining act all the way through. You know, they went into stadiums later on this tour. They went to stadiums, obviously on all the albums after. So not forgotten about. Unfortunately, you know, they've had periods where they've got back together and they made a very good comeback album with Infestation, but then they fell out again. Principally, I think Stephen Pearcy is a bit of a problem to me, but I don't know, could be wrong. Maybe it's other people. But anyway, that kind of, in summarising this album, it's got fantastic guitar arrangements. The production's really good for the time. The backing vocals are good. Although the vocals aren't great, I think it's Stephen Pearcy's best vocal performance. I think he's knuckled down. I think later on he became twisted. He was probably a bit more ego. I think Ratt got more interested in extracurricular activities at times, should we say. Stunning solos by Warren Martini, solid lead work by Robin Crosby. And it doesn't really dip. It's easily a 9 out of 10, maybe more. I used to say Invasion used to be my favourite album, just tipping this, but as time's gone on, this is a great record. And I think it's one anyone can enjoy, or enjoy some aspects of it, even if you don't like pop metal, hair metal era 80s stuff. Okay, so that's my review, 40 years old today, out of the Cellar Ratt. I should just quickly say, I think this album kind of came to my life. We got Invasion with Privacy, my brother bought it, and I think we went down to Coventry to visit my auntie and my grandmother, and we must have gone to Coventry Town Centre, City Centre, and probably got it from Virgin Records or HMV. Yeah, so 1985 was when I first heard it, but I think I'd heard Round and Round on the Friday Rock Show prior to that. Okay, there we go. Thanks a lot. Remember to share and subscribe, and see you again soon. Thank you very much.